Let's learn more about flowers. We've already learned a bunch. This is a fairly complete, but not completely complete, diagram of a flower. And what you'll see is a stalk of the individual flower called a pedicel. A sadly unlabeled part that I'm now going to label called the receptacle, which is basically where the other flower parts are attached. I think of it as like a stage, and the other flower parts are performers or dancers on that stage. The receptacle is the stage. Sepals, which are usually green appendages that come first. When I say come first, I mean you look at a flower from the bottom to the top, because plants actually grow by adding cells at their tip. And the way in which, order in which things are produced is from the bottom to the top. And so it's rational to look at them from the bottom to the top. It's also convenient. Sepals protect the flower and bud, usually. Petals, colorful, acting as advertising to attract pollinators. The male part of the flower is the stamen, which has two parts, a sac of pollen called an anther and a supporting stalk called a filament. The female part of the flower is called the pistil, and it's got a lot of parts. The lower part, most important I guess, lowest, is the ovary. It is a future fruit. It contains ovules, which are future seeds. The stigma, the top part, that's a special place where pollen, if it finds itself, can grow. It grows a tube down through the style through which sperm swim, and one of them, at least, one of them, period, fertilizes an egg in the ovule. So that's a nice, straightforward diagram that explains flower function. But what we're going to learn is some of the ways in which flowers vary in order to be able to better understand the diversity in flowers. So we have to learn some more terms. But mostly we're going to learn collective terms, and particularly with respect to, well, almost all the parts. So let's start over again. So we're going to draw a receptacle. I'm sorry, I misspoke. A pedicel and a nice receptacle where the other flower parts are attached. And we're going to draw some nice petals. And we're going to draw, I feel like Bob Ross. We're going to draw stamens. These are happy stamens. They're reaching to the sky. These stamens are charming little stamens, smiling stamens. And in the center of the flower is the pistil. I'm drawing faintly the ovules, because it's supposed to show they're inside. And pretty nice. Let's do some labeling. So as we learned, this green appendage is called a sepal. And what I'd like to share with you is that there's a collective term for all of the sepals together. And the collective term for all of the sepals together is called the calyx. Calyx. C-A-Y-L. That's not right. I knew it was wrong the minute I did it. Let's see if this erases. Does anything erase? Oh, I know there's an eraser here. Eraser. Boom. Let's try that again. Let's try spelling again. Calyx. That's the collective term. So you could say, for example, for the flower, that if this was in real life, you would all have in front of you with your hand lenses or microscopes, it would have 4 sepals. And I would say the calyx of this mustard flower has 4 separate sepals that are green. Okay. We've already learned that this is a petal. And there's a collective term for the petals. And the collective term, which I'm going to abbreviate, COLLTRMM, that means all the petals together is called a corolla. Okay? And yeah, so you would say the corolla of this imaginary flower that I wish weren't imaginary has 4 yellow strap-shaped petals. that are separate from each other and equal in size. Whoop. Yeah. Why did that happen? And the good news is, now that we're enjoying collective terms, there's a collective term for all of the petals and all of the sepals. And this is, I gotta figure out how to make that stop happening. This is called the Perianth. And the thing about scientific terms is that they kind of make sense. I mean, I heard someone said once that in a biology class, an introductory biology class, that there are no more new words in that than there are in like introductory language, foreign language class. I'm not sure I believe that, but the thing is to look at the words and make sense of them. So peri means around, like perimeter, and anth refers to the anthers. So these are the parts of the flower that are around the male parts of the flower, perianth. So the perianth is named for where it's situated. Okay, so as we learned before, the male part. This slender stalk is called a filament, and the pollen sac is called an anther. And together, they're a stamen. And so there's the stamen. No, just erase that. Go away, T. Stamen. And so there's another name for all of the stamens. And I'm going to write collective term. And it's called the andrecium. Why'd that happen? Gotta figure out how to make that stop happening. The androecium, and it kind of means, so the collective term for all of the stamens is the, gotta figure out how to make that stop happening, is the andrecium. Android, and whatever, it means male. It means the male house. And so you'd say the andrecium of this flower, if it was really before you, would consist of 6 stamens, 4 long and 2 short. And as we learned before, the female part of the flower, which we sort of call the pistil, we did call the pistil, has 3 parts. The bottom part is the ovary. The top part, I like to jump to the top because the middle part, the style, just basically connects them. And this is called, we called it a pistil. And that is the collective term, but I would like to suggest that an alternative name, let's learn the word gynoesium. Gynoesium. I'm not sure I spelled that neatly enough. Gynoesium. Gyne. It's like gynecology, female. Gynecium, female house. That's a more inclusive term. There's basically 3 terms that refer to this part of the flower. Sometimes used right, sometimes used incorrectly. They are pistil, gynoesium, and carpel. And we're going to learn shortly that there's some differences between those terms that we have to be mindful of. So that's what we've learned. We've learned collective terms. We've learned the andrecium is a good term for all of the male parts of the flower. We've learned that the corolla is a way to describe all the petals. A calyx is a way to describe all the sepals. And the perianth is the way to describe the petals and the sepals. And the setals and the peoples. All that stuff collectively. The pistil, we already learned, is the stigma, the style, and the ovary, but we have another name for it called the gynoesium, because we're going to be more explicit. So, coming up next, we're going to see some of the different ways in which flowers can vary, having in part to do with these things. So thank you for watching, listening, and coming up next, flower symmetry and fusion of parts.